Hey everyone, ready for another deep dive. Today we're traveling through time and across continents to explore a language that's as vibrant as its history, Azerbaijani.
It's a language that's really captured my imagination. There's just so much to unpack.
I know, right? Where do we even begin with a language that's been shaped by so many different cultures?
Well, I think the best place to start is, the beginning.
Makes sense to me. So, geographically speaking, where would we even hear Azerbaijani being spoken?
So the most obvious answer is Azerbaijan, of course, but it's actually split across two main areas, the Republic of Azerbaijan and Iranian Azerbaijan.
Okay, so two sides of the same coin, but I'm guessing that split goes deeper than just geography, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's
Yeah.
a bit like, imagine twins separated at birth. They might share the same DNA, but their personalities and experiences have shaped them in completely different ways. And that's definitely true for Azerbaijani.
Okay, so to really understand these twins, we need to rewind a bit, right? Take us back to the beginning. All right, so picture this. It's centuries ago, and nomadic Turkic tribes are migrating across Central Asia, bringing their language with them, the Oghuz language. This is the foundation, the bedrock of what will become Azerbaijani.
So as they're traveling, are they picking up words and phrases from other languages along the way, kind of like linguistic souvenirs?
Exactly. I like how you put that, linguistic souvenirs. And, no souvenirs were more impactful than the ones they picked up from Persian and Arabic.
Yeah, I was reading about that. The sources were saying that these two languages, they really left their mark on Azerbaijani.
Oh, without a doubt. They influence everything from the sounds of the language to the way sentences are put together.
Speaking of influences, there was something about loan words being passed on through Persian, almost like a linguistic relay race. Can you give me an example?
Oh, there are tons. But let me see. A good example would be the word for window in Azerbaijani. It actually comes from the Persian word panjara, which itself came from the Arabic banjara. So you can literally see the word's journey across different cultures and across time. Isn't that fascinating?
That's amazing. I mean, who knew a single word could hold so much history? So we've got these early influences shaping Azerbaijani, but I'm guessing the journey doesn't end there, does it?
Oh, not even close. Languages, they're constantly evolving, right?
Yeah.
Responding to new influences, new technologies, all sorts of things.
Yeah.
Azerbaijani, it's no different. It's a perfect example of that, actually.
Okay, so let's fast forward a bit then. Today we've got these two main branches of Azerbaijani, North and South. Just how different are they? If I learned one, could I understand the other?
Ah, that's the million-dollar question. Linguists are still debating that one, They definitely have their differences. For starters, they don't even use the same writing system. North Azerbaijani uses a Latin alphabet, kind of like Turkish, but South Azerbaijani, they use the Perso-Arabic script.
So it's like trying to read two different languages almost.
It can feel that way, yeah. But even beyond the writing systems, there are differences in pronunciation and vocabulary, too.
But would you say those differences are deal breakers when it comes to understanding?
That's a tough one. Imagine eavesdropping on a conversation between someone from London and someone from, say, Texas. They might have different accents, use different slang, but they can still understand each other for the most part, right?
Right. There's still that common ground.
Exactly. And that's kind of the situation with North and South Azerbaijani.
Yeah.
They've got that shared ancestry that kind of bridges the gap. Speaking of which, there's actually a really cool historical anecdote about this. Apparently back in the 1930s, Reza Shah of Iran, who spoke South Azerbaijani, and Ataturk of Turkey, they could actually understand each other pretty well during a diplomatic meeting.
Wow, that's wild. Okay, so despite their separate journeys, there's still that linguistic kinship. That's pretty amazing when you think about it. It's like languages can transcend political boundaries or something,
Absolutely. And speaking of connections, Azerbaijani, it actually played a pretty significant role as a kind of historical bridge itself. Did you know that?
Yeah, the sources mentioned something about that, something about it being a lingua franca.
Exactly. For centuries, Azerbaijani, it wasn't just a local language. It was the language of trade, diplomacy, even high culture, used alongside Persian in courts and administrative settings. It was a big deal.
Wow, so we're talking about a language that was once a major player on the world stage.
Oh, absolutely. For a real-world example, you can look at the Caucasus School Statute of 1829. It actually mandated that Azerbaijani be taught in schools across a huge swath of the region, including places like Yerevan and Tbilisi, which are in Armenia and Georgia today. That just goes to show how widespread its influence was back then.
Wow, that's incredible. It makes you realize how much the linguistic landscape can change over time. We tend to think of languages as static, but they're constantly evolving, shifting, just like the cultures that speak them.
That's so true. And speaking of cultural expression, we can't forget about Azerbaijani's incredibly rich literary tradition. It's really quite something.
Oh, yeah, I was really interested to learn more about that. I mean, I'm always fascinated by how languages come alive through their literature. Where do we even begin with Azerbaijani literature? It seems like there's so much to explore.
But we could start as far back as the 14th century with poets like Imadeddin Nasimi. He was writing these beautiful lyrical verses in Azerbaijani.
Yeah, the sources mentioned another poet, Fuzuli, who was writing in multiple languages. That's impressive in itself. What kind of things did he write about?
Yeah, Fuzuli writing in multiple languages. That's like next level stuff. What kind of things did he write about?
Oh, he was a master of exploring, the big themes: love, loss,
Yeah.
spirituality. I mean, some of his lines are just breathtaking, like, from your street, even the wind brings me the scent of roses.
Wow. The scent of roses. That's beautiful. It's amazing how poetry can like transcend time and language. Absolutely. And that tradition, it's continued to thrive in Azerbaijani literature. In the 20th century, you have poets like Mohammad Hossein Shahriar. His work, it resonated not just in Azerbaijan, but across the wider Turkic-speaking world.
So even with that linguistic divide we talked about, there's still this shared literary heritage between North and South Azerbaijani.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But it is fascinating to see how each branch has, kind of carved its own path. Think of it like two branches growing from the same trunk. They might be reaching in slightly different directions, but those roots, that shared origin, it's always there.
That's a great way to put it. It makes you wonder, about all those what if scenarios in history. Like, what if there had been more of a push for a unified literary scene? Would we have seen different kinds of stories?
That's a great question. That really makes you think, right? Would it have led to like more collaboration, more cross-pollination of ideas? Or would it have, maybe stifled some of the unique voices that emerged from each branch?
It's fascinating to think about, and it really highlights how interconnected language and history really are. But let's switch gears for a second. I wanted to circle back to some of those unique linguistic features of Azerbaijani, like that vowel harmony thing. That still sounds kind of mysterious to me.
It does have a kind of, magical ring to it, but it's actually a really cool linguistic feature. You find it in a lot of Turkic languages. Basically, it means that the vowels in a word, they kind of harmonize with each other.
Yeah.
So like the vowel in the first syllable, it kind of dictates how the vowels that come after it will sound.
Oh, okay. So it's like the vowels are all in a choir and they have to harmonize to make the words sound right.
That's a great way to put it. It's all about creating that smooth, pleasing flow within the word.
And speaking of flow, Azerbaijani has another trick up its sleeve when it comes to pronunciation: consonant reordering.
Oh, yeah. The sources mentioned that. It sounded like some serious tongue-twisting action. It does sound that way,
Yeah.
but it actually makes pronunciation easier. So, for instance, the word iri, which means forward, often gets pronounced as irli. The consonants kind of switch places to make it flow better.
So it's like the language has like a built-in efficiency mode or something?
That's a good way to think about it.
Yeah.
And before we wrap up, we can't forget about that formal-informal distinction for you, which we touched on earlier, kind of like in French with tu and vous.
Yeah. It's like having a secret code for politeness.
Exactly. Knowing when to use sren, the informal you, versus siz, the formal you, it's essential for navigating social situations. It adds a whole other layer of meaning to your interactions.
It really is a fascinating language. I mean, from its nomadic roots to those intricate linguistic details, Azerbaijani has surprised me at every turn.
It's a real testament to the power of language to, reflect history, culture, all the things that make us human.
It really is. Well, that's all the time we have for today, but I hope our deep dive has inspired you to learn more about this incredible language. Until next time.
Goodbye, everyone.